you very much, Parvin, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I feel that there's a momentum in the humanitarian sector at the moment to connect climate, environmental information with disease, and it's great to participate in this. So I'll speak today about a pilot project in MSF, which is actually set in 3 different locations, one in India, one in South Sudan, and the third one in Nigeria. So I'll speak about the one in South Sudan. I said my slide was a bit translated or a bit moved out. So the pin is actually supposed to be in Jonglei, a bit north to Wat in South Sudan. So it's in Lankien. So that's where the project is set. And it's a location where MSF has been in the field for 25 years. It's also a place where we have a primary healthcare center. It's a place where malaria is endemic, and it has a very strong seasonal component. You can move to the next slide. Yeah, so the goal of this project, well, is to highlight this seasonal transmission, but particularly the years where there's an interannual effect and it's much higher than usual. Since in these years, it actually leads well to more cases of malaria in the field, but also it might lead, if the MSF healthcare center is overburdened, to increase mortality in those instances. So what we'll try to do with this project is to better understand the connection with environmental variables to epidemiological one, to try to predict these unusual years and try to perform vector control actions earlier. You can move to the next slide. So what we will use in terms of epidemiological information is information which is collected by Médecins Sans Frontières already in the field. So the first one is the number of cases. It's quite straightforward. It's patients coming to the clinic with symptoms. They're tested. So we have the positive cases which we will take for this study. The second one is the antenatal care prevalence, ANC. This is actually taken from pregnant women coming from routine pre-delivery exams, and where they're tested for malaria. And it's often seen this variable as something more objective than the number of cases, since the cases are identified are not particularly coming because of symptoms of malaria. So in these cases, we have more than 5 years of data, which will help us make these connections with environmental variables. You can move to the next slide. In terms of environmental variable, what we choose is actually variables which have been connected with malaria in the literature quite extensively. So on the weather side, we have rainfall, temperature, and humidity. And we also have data on the remote sensing side, which act as a sort of proxy for weather information. So vegetation health index, which is a measure of the health or lushiness of vegetation, which kind of integrates the rainfall, the temperature, and humidity. Because if we have high rainfall, high temperatures, and high humidity, we will usually have a vegetation health which is very high, and conditions which are more prone for malaria. The second one, which we will also use, is the normalized differentiated water index, which is a sort of measure of extent of floodings. And we've seen in South Sudan that floods are usually come hand in hand with malaria afterwards, with a certain lag time. You can move to the next slide. And connecting this with regression analysis, so environmental variables as independent variables, epidemiological ones as dependent ones, we want to act earlier on strategies which we already put in place in MSF. So indoor residual spraying, RS, but also the distribution of long-lasting insecticide-treated nets. So it's strategies which are put in place already by the WASH teams, and we want to time them better, but also, let's say, have the right extent. If we're predicting an unusual high transmission season, we want to have the extent which we want. You can move to the next slide. And this is a very rough timeline just to show you the window of action time which we're looking at. So basically, I mean, it's very rough because depending on the mosquito type, the Anopheles, the parasite, the Plasmodium, this timeline will not be exactly these weeks. But what we're looking at is if we have environmental conditions which are ideal on week 0, we usually have 2 weeks before the mosquitoes will reproduce and hatch, so from egg to adult stage, and also 2 weeks for the incubation of the parasite within the mosquito before they can transmit to humans. So that's the 4-week times which we're looking at to put in place actions. And it's something particular about malaria because it allows to do early action without having forecasting information. So this is, I believe, like the main reason why I think it's quite possible like to do early action quite easily for malaria in this case. So thank you very much, and happy to answer questions on the project.